Hi, my name is Zahao. And this is our project. It's called Data. Data stands for a decentralized data marketplace. So the name is stripped from these these two words. So it's called Data. So what's the problem that we're facing in these modern days is that we have the issue of data monetization. What does that mean? So in modern days, personal data is actually extremely valuable. But yet the users who actually produce and own the data do not have full control over how their data is being collected, used, or monetized. Because as the users use the big tech company services like TikTok, Meta services, these big tech companies tend to harvest user data, often without any explicit user consent. And even if there is a terms of conditions for users to read through, people actually just don't read through. And there's actually no monetization that comes to the actual end users. And the big techs will use these data to train their large language models and do machine learning to do whatever advertisements they want to run. So there is actually this increasingly large and diverse data sets demands in AI in the AI world. So data also needs to be quality, have good quality. Otherwise, we need external data labeling services to do so. So why why not just combine both of these two in the same solution? So this is data. Data Data is a decentralized data ownership and monetization protocol that builds on the Aptos blockchain. So it enables individuals to truly own, control, and monetize their own data. So think of data as another layer one blockchain project called Vana. But Vana is built on top of Ethereum. But data is instead built on Aptos. Um, so here is a general architecture diagram. As we can see, the end users could be a real human, a user, or AI agents. So each of these users are able to submit data or request data. So both as a buyer and as a data supplier. So they come to the data front end, which is written in Next.js. If this is for an actual user, if it's for an AI agent, they might interact with data through API calls. And API calls, which is the backend, is actually hosted in a Golang service that calls the Aptos blockchain using the Aptos API and SDK. And under the hood, we have the storage layer. Here we have a Postgres database, which stores certain intermediate states of a user's transaction. And there's this GeoMate indexer. So this is actually a indexer built on Aptos. What it does is it enables fast and secure data fetching and data mutations instead of directly querying the blockchain. And next up, we have S3 buckets. This is actually for storing users' raw data files. So as you can think of, so here in data, we assume all the data is in the format of CSV. So once a user submit a CSV document, it's actually been submitted to a S3 bucket. But this process can actually be improved with something called Shelby. So Shelby is a IPFS alternative built on Aptos, which is a decentralized storage that enables P2P sharing. But at the current stage, Shelby is not yet fully implemented. So I actually cannot use Shelby services in this data project. And under the hood of the storage layer, we have the actual blockchain, Aptos blockchain itself. So on the blockchain, we have the data contracts, core contracts, and modules. Maybe now we can do some demo. Let me just reshare my screen. I hope this works. Okay, I hope you all still can see my screen. Um, yeah, so here I have two instances of the data project hosted on my local host, 3000s. And I have two instances in two different sort of browser tabs, just to demonstrate a process of a user and a buyer. Um, right, this is live demo. I hope it works. So let's say on the left-hand side, we have a supplier. And this is my wallet here connected already. So for example, let me select data. I have some sample data here. For example, let me put this one, order V3. Let me see. Might be too big. I'm trying to pick something that is smaller. Okay. Maybe this one, inventory, 70 kilobytes. So let's open that. You can see here it's parsing the CSV file. And another thing that it is doing is computing a data hash. Data hash is like a hash of this data raw file. What it does is it prevents the same piece of data from being submitted repeatedly, because the same data should only be submitted once. If the data is being repeatedly submitted, there could be issue with the monetization distribution. Um, we don't actually want that. So as you can see here in the front end, it's able to parse the schema of this CSV file. And here we can write a short description of this data, and it will show here also the top 5 rows of these data sets. Now after that, we can click submit to the blockchain. And what it does, it will prompt me to use my wallet here in Petra wallet. So this is my account connected on the left-hand side. So let me approve this transaction. You will see show here data submitted. And there's a transaction hash. I can actually see in my vaults. So I believe this was data set number 10 that I just submitted. Okay, it failed to load. Yeah, but by right, it should be this one. Okay, it loads now. So it will show you the data hash, the metadata, which is also like sort of like a field on the data contract on Aptos. And you can click view CSV. It will show basically everything here. This part is retrieving the raw file from the AWS S3. Um, okay, so this is dataset number 10. On the left-hand side, on the right-hand side, sorry. As a buyer, I can go to the marketplace. I really hope this works. Let's see. We see here, dataset number 10. I agree that this naming can be a bit different. So, instead of like a number, we should use UUID. Just now it blinks because it's like finally retrieving accurate data from the geomet indexer. So in this case, we know this is dataset number 10. And at the current stage, we pay a fixed amount for each dataset regarding the value and regarding the size of the datasets. So we can click on here, pay and request. So there will be a access request being submitted. So users don't just buy and get what they want, because they still need the seller to approve. So on the left-hand side here as a seller, I can see there's a pending review. I can actually approve this or I can deny this. Normally, there's the buyer should input some text like why am I using this piece of data for, for the sellers to understand more. So in this case, let me approve. So now it's approved. Let's go back to the right-hand side. I believe I have to sort of refresh the page here. Okay, now I see the request has been approved, and I'm ready to pay. So at this stage, I can do pay and unlock the wallets on my right-hand side as the buyer. And let me approve. Then the transaction is out. I send 0.1 Aptos to buy this piece of data set. Yeah, that's the flow basically for the purchase of data. Just going back to the presentation. Okay, so this is a highly simplified implementation of the entire vision of this project. Of course, there are many different improvements and roadmaps we can have for data. So first of all, as I mentioned just now, we can use Shelby instead of AWS S3 because that is a more decentralized and it is an Aptos native way of storing files on a blockchain. Um, but that stage is pending, depending on the progress of the Shelby team. And next up, we need to have the data DAO. So what is data DAO is actually, if you know how Vena works, is that instead of each individual people contribute a isolated data set, all the data that adheres to the same schema or use case can be formed together as a data DAO. So for example, if this data DAO is called, for example, medical data for heart diseases, and there's a fixed number of columns and attributes of the fields. And in that case, each individual users can actually contribute um, their own data set that adheres to the schema. Um, so one individual data set could be not enough, but when it's a data DAO, thousands users across the world can actually submit all to this data DAO. So for a user's perspective, for like a data buyer's perspective, this data DAO suddenly becomes more valuable because he has clean, refined data, actual data from actual humans. Um, yeah, so data DAO. And we need to have end-to-end encryption. At the moment, because we're using S3, some of the raw data are storing on the bucket. This part can definitely be improved with some E2E support with stuff like TE, and with some cryptography magic on the blockchain to make this part more secure. But as mentioned, if we can use Shelby, we don't need to worry about this. Um, and next up, we can decouple the data sets, the database, because some of the intermediate purchasing steps right now, we're still relying on the database. This part can also be improved because maybe we don't actually need any intermediate states. We can fully rely on the blockchain, but my contract didn't sort of include those in the beginning, and using a database make the stuff more easier to demo. Um, Next up, we can have X402. So X402 is actually something new in the blockchain space. It's like a HTTP status code that required for payment. So just now, as you can see, as a buyer, when I'm buying data, I'm just simply paying, and the transaction goes to the sellers directly. Instead, this part can be improved with the X402. With that, we can have more fine-grained access control, actually, make everything more seamless. And finally, we can have some spam protection because um, just now during my demo, actually Data doesn't integrate any AI features currently. So I'm thinking, how can we use AI in Data? So one of the very important use cases is spam protection because data suppliers can just sort of submit false and manipulated data just to earn a reward. And of course, as data buyers, we don't want that. We can use large language models to do spam detection, um, to sort of understand if a user is actually submitting a piece of useless data, to flag them out. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for the data project. Thank you very much. I think we can now move on to Q&A.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. And someone have questions?
Thanks for the nice introduction. Now I looked at the things that I want to ask, and I realized many of them are in your roadmap. So I see this is probably the listing for the idea. Yeah. So for example, one thing I want to ask is that this very important issue about is data provenance. So from the moment you sort of like allow people upload the data and then they put on the market and then sell it to somebody. So this and the whole journey, there are multiple stages where we need to secure the trusting. For example, how do you make sure that the person has the right to upload the right data, right? And when he sells the data to someone else, how do you guarantee that somebody else will not resell the data, right? For example, and also, um, Yeah, so it seems to me right now, it's quite free, right? You just upload any data you have, just upload and then you can sell. So the whole this thing, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. The other one is it seems to me this is a data marketplace, and why is it decentralized? I mean that if I can imagine if I put on the centralized, you know, data telco or something like a data team or something, will it work equally well? I mean, what's the value that is this decentralization part adding to it? This is the same question. And finally, the one I think is a pricing issue, right? I mean, right now people can just add a price tag to it. And how would you think about the pricing part can be integrated into the system?
Sure, sir, can you repeat the final question? I know there are three questions. I didn't really catch.
Pricing. Right now, people can put any price tag to my data, right? If I upload data, I just sell. I mean, or if I understand correctly, who's gonna right now give the price tag to the data?
Oh, okay. I think I understand. Okay. Let me understand. Let me answer all those. So first question, I believe was the security part. Yes, this part, everything can be improved more securely. At the moment, just now you see some, transaction signing on the front end. That part is pretty much securely guaranteed because it's interacting with the blockchain directly, with the user's own wallets. So we don't have to worry about that. And it's when the users submitting their data, which is stored in AWS S3 at the moment, that part can be faulty. And the data are stored as a raw format. So that part we can have some more end-to-end encryption stuff, as I mentioned just now. We can have like a raw data being encrypted with users' public key, using asymmetric encryption. Um,
Okay.
and
I'm talking about security. I'm talking about how do you make sure the user has the right to upload the data? I mean, it's not about security, but it's about ownership of the data. And as well as when I sell the data to someone, how can I make sure that the person
Right.
who sell the data, even everything is secure, this is still a problem.
Okay, I understand now. So, yeah, I think everything can be solved with data DAO, when the DAO is actually there. So, in order to be qualified to submit a piece of data, users have to sort of verify their identity, using, sort of, blockchain native ways of doing so instead of like a centralized, SingPass or something. Even though we can support that and convert the data to the information to some cryptography, metadata, to flag a user as being qualified or disqualified. So that's one. And in order to prevent data from being resubmitted, or reused without the seller's concern, I'm thinking we can have something called like the synth ID. So synth ID is something that Google proposed in their large language model generation. So stuff, text, images generated from by a large language model have this synth ID. That thing is like an invisible watermark, and can be detected, when the thing is being reused. So I'm thinking if we can have that part to sort of label each data set with a synth ID, invisible watermark. And when the data is actually, came to the data platform again, we can flag that. Um, of course, with the data hash, we can also do that. But I think this problem is just like any user IP issues we have nowadays with any other market, is that you can't, as a platform, you can't really prevent people from sort of resell the thing you buy here and sell that to someone else. What we can do is to prevent that as much as possible, on our platform and with Synth ID. That part is only when every party in a world sort of agree on the synth ID protocol, and we can detect and flag. But until then, I think this problem is could be very hard to be resolved, fully resolved. Yes. Sorry, what's the next question?
Second question about the decentralization, what
Oh,
value?
right. Right. So, I believe this is a trade-off. So, of course, I believe anything sort of on in the decentralized world nowadays, definitely have a centralized replacement that has better user experience, and can be used better. But But this is the whole value of decentralization, is that each user own their own thing. So if I'm to submit anything to a centralized platform, sort of after I submit, it's up to the centralized platform to do their job to adhere their promise. As a user, I don't actually have any control over those. But with decentralization, user can all the data are actually governed by their wallet. They can choose to approve do anything with their data set instead of listening to the centralized entity. So yeah, I think that's a trade-off question instead of a better experience question. Yes, I think in most cases, a centralized platform can provide a better user experience, but it comes with a trade-off. Yes.
The market right now, centralized or decentralized? I'm not talking about the user wallet, but I'm talking about the market.
It's decentralized. It's on the blockchain.
So the market is a decentralized exchange.
It's not really a DEX at the moment, because right now it's basically using the indexer to aggregate everything that is open to sell on the contract. So yeah, I guess you can say at the moment it is not really a DEX, but it's meant to be a DEX for data. Yes.
And finally, the price tag. Can you briefly tell how you set the price tag for the data?
Right now the price tag is fixed, 0.1 Aptos. But definitely this part can be evaluated based on the data size, first of all, and the data quality. Uh, I think we cannot actually let the sellers to price their own pricing, because in that way, this instead of a marketplace, this sort of like a bidding situation. And I think this evaluation should be done by a like a data protocol or something like with large language model to um but definitely we cannot see the full picture of user data, because that way it's like a violation of user's consent and privacy. So I think we can have some method to evaluate the value of a data sets by reading for example the first 5 or 10 rows, and come up with like a fair judgment of how much this data set is valued. Yeah, and this is for the current situation, but when we have a data DAO implemented, everything can be governed by the DAO itself. So maybe the DAO sets that each data sets are priced exactly the same. That could also be like a one possible situation. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much to the developers for their excellent presentations. Now